McLaughlin. I'm an assistant professor here at UNC Asheville in the Environmental Studies Department, and I am the ecoEXPLORE Ornithology Science Mentor. So birds are the only living organisms that have feathers, for example. Dinosaurs had feathers, and birds are dinosaurs, but they're the only living organisms that have feathers. And there aren't too many vertebrates that can fly either, but birds can fly. Most of them are flying organisms. They are also adapted to other systems too, though. So a lot of them have adapted really well to the sea or to lakes. So they've got a number of different adaptations that allow them to conquer whatever habitat they happen to prefer. Birds are also really great biological indicators. So they are the canary in the coal mine, so to speak. So they tell us how things are doing. They tell us how ecosystems are doing. And if they're changing, if bird communities are changing, then we know that something is changing in the ecosystem too. And they allow us to understand what those changes are and measure them as well. So they're great indicators of what's going on Earth. Birds are also really great components and important components of ecosystems. They pollinate plants, for example. Some birds are pollinators, some birds are seed dispersers. They move seeds around and allow plants to disperse themselves. Birds are also scavengers. Some birds are scavengers and they return nutrients back to the environment. And so they're really critical components of a lot of ecosystems. So one thing my students and I have been doing is just doing surveys in forested areas to see how birds are responding to various environmental changes. And so birds have a unique song and call. Each species you can tell by the different songs and calls that they make. And so we've been doing some surveys in the Smoky Mountains, for example, and we're comparing the data we collect these years with data that was collected 20 years ago. And so we've got some questions that we can answer just by listening to where the birds are from time to time and from year to year. So one question I have is, how are birds responding to climate change over the last few decades? We think that some birds might be moving up the mountain because of warmer temperatures or altered precipitation patterns. And is that true? Is that happening here in our backyard in the Smoky Mountains? So that's one thing that I'd like to ask. I'm enamored with the brown-headed nuthatch. It's one of my favorite birds. It's a small little squeaky bird, and they don't breed very commonly here. We do see them in places that we have shortleaf pine forests, for example, but they're not a very common ecosystem here in the southern Appalachians. We find them way more in the Piedmont and in the coastal plain, but we do have some pockets of brown-headed nuthatches here in Asheville and western North Carolina, and they're one of my favorites. So I have not always been an ornithologist. I came to birds really late in life. I wasn't until my mid-20s when I started falling in love with birds, and that was living in Portland, Oregon, and I visited a wildlife refuge in downtown Portland, which was a wildlife refuge for great blue herons. And I couldn't believe that there were great blue herons nesting in the middle of Portland, Oregon. I bought a pair of binoculars, I bought a bird book, and then the rest is history. I just fell in love and decided that's what I wanted to do the rest of my life. And so I pursued that with more schooling and more study and networking, and here I am.